Hello and welcome back. This is Don't Watch at Night, a spooky little podcast dedicated to Spanish language horror and Latin American horror. I'm your host, Valerie.
And I'm Veronica.
Veronica and I are a big batch of mess right now. So as you can tell, I sound like this because I'm battling like a head cold. And Veronica had her wisdom teeth pulled, so we're barely hanging.
Yeah, two on my right side, so my right cheek, because I look like a chipmunk on that side.
Yeah, so we're barely hanging on. We need to just get through this episode and then go on vacation. How have you been doing? Like that aside, chipmunk cheeks aside, how are you doing?
Pretty good. I took my ACE group fitness certification exam. What is it now? A couple of weeks ago. Passed that, so that's good. I don't ever have to look at that stuff again.
The stress of that is over.
So that's one less thing off my plate, or one more thing off my plate.
What day did you have your wisdom teeth pulled?
Friday. Today. We're filming today Saturday. No, Sunday.
So, yeah, today's Sunday. Well, yesterday you said you worked a booth. You were like, which I interpret as like you were a vendor at a booth at an event.
Yeah, I forget what the name of it is called, but it's this fitness thing where they just gather a bunch of people in the wellness and fitness industry. So they'll have like yoga there, mind body stuff, some physical therapists, just different things, anything that's connected to wellness. So since I will be working with the Fly Dance Fitness Studio here when it opens next month, we had a booth. I wasn't by myself. There was like two or three of us there all the time.
You poor thing. You had to show up with your face all swollen.
It wasn't this bad the day after. Like it really got bad. Yes.
See, I'm wondering if it's like that because you had to do so much talking. In which case, today, here I am making you talk. We're gonna knock this out so that we can be done. So just a couple reminders for you guys. We are doing this episode, and then Veronica and I are going on vacation in the month of June. We take the month of June off to sort of be with families and take a rest. You will still be getting episodes, but they're going to be pre-recorded compilation episodes. So look forward to that. This is June, by the way, is the only month we take off. So we're now finishing up our second year of podcasting, entering season 3, if you will. And we only ever take June off. So that's pretty good. We're delivering episodes to you on the regular basis. Yeah.
Yeah, Mom.
We can get into it if you're ready.
I'm ready.
This week, the movie we watched is 1977's Suspiria, directed by Dario Argento and starring Jessica Harper, Stefania Cassini, Flavio Bucci, Barbara Magnolfi, Alida Valli, Joan Bennett, and then, so it's worth mentioning this, Ron, the woman who played Helena Marcos is not credited in the film. Jessica Harper has indicated that she was not an actual actress and that Argento found her on the streets of Rome. Supposedly she was a very elderly former sex worker, and so she's in this movie. So we don't know who she is.
She still deserved to have her name in the credits.
Right. Okay, so here's a little bit about the movie. An American newcomer to a prestigious German ballet academy comes to realize that the school is a front for something sinister amid a series of grisly murders. I watched this movie, like almost a week ago. You watched this movie when? Last night?
Last night. I started at 10:30.
Okay. What did you think about this movie? What was your initial impression of it?
15-minute mark of movie. This is what I wrote. What the hell am I watching? It was interesting.
Wait. 15 minutes in, at that point, the first death has already happened, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, because I think I had it like 13 minutes in is where that death scene, that visually stunning death scene happens. And I was just like, wow. But overall, did you like it? Did you find it interesting? Did you find it artistic?
There were some very definite, strong stylistic choices made. And I think it was visually, I don't know what he was going for. I don't want to say avant-garde, but colorful, very stylistic. But I just felt like real superficial plot, like a cobbled together plot. A lot of flash, but not a lot of meat. That makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was interesting. I actually cackled out loud several times, and I don't think that's probably the reaction that they were going for back in when was this made?
1977. Yeah.
I was just like, what the hell am I watching?
I'm definitely going to want to hear those moments where you cackled. So stuff to know about this movie, Dario Argento did a Three Mothers trilogy. So this is movie 1, and then 1980's Inferno is the next one in the trilogy. And then it culminates in 2007's The Mother of Tears. This was also partially based on Thomas de Quincey's essay Suspiria de Profundis. And as you all know, this is there was a 2018 remake essentially, but it's really nothing like the original, is my understanding. I haven't seen that one. So, I mean, I will tell you my thoughts as a full piece. Looking at the whole movie, I thought this was a really artistic piece of work. Stylistically, it reminded me a lot of Rosemary's Baby. I can't really put my finger on what exactly about it reminded me of that, but I got that vibe off the movie. Really intense music.
Yes, I was like, what?
And that's the work. This was a band, an Italian progressive rock band that Argento worked with a lot, called Goblin, and they're still around as far as I know. So, but yeah, like same thing. Like at the start of the movie, I will be honest with you, I did not know where it was going, and then we have that first. I don't know how to, like, I'm going to say spectacular, this spectacular death scene. And I was like, okay, well, you have my attention now. Overall, I enjoyed it. Yeah, it's a head trip. It's a trippy film. It's for
like
sure
a fever
trippy film.
dream.
Yeah, exactly.
Or someone's LSD trip.
Yeah, and I mean, and you kind of get that almost immediately when she's going through the airport and then she sees that girl running through that part felt very, we'll come to find out later on as we discuss, he was heavily influenced by like Snow White for this film. And you can kind of see that, and we'll talk about that later. But certainly in that opening sequence with that girl running scared through the woods, it's giving a little bit of Snow White. There's some finer points that I'm sure we want to talk about. I can go first, or if you have one.
Oh, you can go first.
Okay, well, so I want to talk about that first death scene. So let me just set it up real quick. What was that girl's name? The girl who got suspended from the school? Pat. Okay.
Pat Hingle? Pat something. Pat.
That is not what I thought it was. Okay. I thought it was like, is it Laura? Like, I couldn't remember.
No, there were no Lauras in this movie.
Okay, so Pat, who got suspended from the school. So after Susie sees her fleeing through the woods in the rain, we then see Pat ends up at a friend's apartment. It's this extremely dramatic building. Pops of red are everywhere, and that's going to be prevalent throughout this film.
It looked like the inside of a kaleidoscope.
Yeah.
Like all the different geometric shapes. And
yes.
On the wall.
Pops of red everywhere. We see her get attacked by this unknown assailant. We just see like black gloved person who stabs her multiple times, sends her through the glass roof. Well, okay, what are you laughing at? Like, what are you remembering?
No, because you wanted to know when was the first time that I cackled out loud, and it was that, because I was like, oh my God, how many times does she have to get stabbed before she dies?
And every single time she's like, I
know. So that was my first time. Well, I was like,
so she's getting stabbed multiple times, and he sends her through the glass roof, strung up by her neck. So in the process of falling through the roof, a piece of like beam or whatever impales her friend, kills her friend instantly. These women are bathed in blood. The brightness of the blood matching with the red all over the room, and
it's like Sherwin-Williams paint.
Yeah, it was like looking at a work of art. I mean, there was a little part of my brain that just really appreciated how visually stunning this was. I don't know what your thoughts were of that. Prior to that happening, were you just kind of like, I felt like the beginning sequences were kind of dragging a little bit. So I was just like, where is this? What is happening? Come on, let's move it along. And then that happened, and I was just like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, it was definitely a big death scene. And what a crappy building this woman lived in that she's screaming her head off and nobody comes out.
Nobody comes out. You know what I wrote when I was watching it? The inside of this house or this apartment and the foyer that they're in when she comes crashing through the roof, it reminded me a lot of, there's I'll have to find the video. I think I've sent you the video before, but it's like one of those like peek inside the home of a celebrity, and the celebrity is Dita Von Teese, who's like a burlesque dancer, and her house reminded me a lot of the opening sequences of this movie. Just like the brightness, the pops of color, shiny paint. It just reminded me a lot of that. For anybody who's a fan of Dita Von Teese, go look at, I'll link it in show notes for you guys so that you can watch that video. She has a really cool house. I don't know if she still lives there, but she did. Your turn. What's one of yours?
Just kind of starting off from the beginning, when she's walking through the airport and there's just all this dramatic, every time somebody walks out the front door, the sliding doors, and
the music.
I kept looking like, am I supposed to be seeing something? Is there something scary about this? And it was just like this overemphasis on making this normal activity seem creepy or ominous. And even when she's riding in the cab, there's all these random shots of the city, of the rain, because it's, what country was this supposed to be in?
What
Germany?
this is supposed to be Germany, yeah.
Okay. Terrible rainstorm, and Susie's like looking out the window of her cab, and all these random shots of the city, and but it's all set to this really ominous music, and
Yeah.
it just was really,
Loud.
he definitely wanted you to know that this was going to be supposed to be a suspenseful movie,
Yeah.
which is why I'm sure my laughing through various parts of it was not intended.
Yeah, I'm sure at the time it was like certainly, yeah. One of the reviews we looked at, the person writing it said that their first taste of this movie when it first came out, they were like a child. They didn't see it. They walked into a theater and they saw a movie poster of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget what the movie poster said exactly.
Said something like, the only thing scarier than the last 12 minutes of this movie were the first 92.
Yeah, something like that. And it's just like,
And
so
I
I'm
was like,
sure.
did we watch the same movie?
I'm sure of the time,
Yeah.
absolutely. And, you know, the gruesomeness of it, the graphicness of it, I'm sure absolutely. Because, like, one thing we didn't mention with that opening death sequence is, like, yeah, she's getting stabbed multiple times. You also get that shot of, like, her heart exposed. And so it's just like, man, this is overkill. But, you know, when her face was getting pressed into the glass, I was just like, man, are we going to see, like, each of her individual bones breaking? Like, that's the kind of body horror type stuff.
Can you be suffocated up against a pane of glass like that?
Yeah.
That's how I thought she was gonna die, like,
or just that, like, her face was just gonna break. But yeah, I mean, he literally just slowly breaks the window with her face. So pretty rough. Okay, one thing that I really focused on that I think is pretty hard to miss is the film's use of color throughout. There's a lot of information in our episode resources that highlights that as well. Evidently, Argento told his cinematographer, whose name eludes me right now, I should have pulled that up, but to kind of draw references, draw inspiration from Walt Disney's Snow White, which is interesting. I wrote down, because I took notes as I watched the movie, from that first death sequence in the red foyer of that apartment. And then also the outside of the dance academy was red. And then you walk inside it, and that first entry space is blue, like deep blue.
I wrote down, is there blue velvet on the walls?
It looked like it. And then, you know, you've got yellows in the film, you've got greens in the film. It kind of reminded me personally of The Mask of the Red Death by Edgar Allan Poe, which is this short story that I'm like obsessed with. I got that reference from it, even though I know that wasn't anything he was inspired by, but that's what it evoked for me. So
it evoked the inside of a bordello for me.
Did it?
Not that I've ever seen the inside of an actual bordello, but
what you imagine a really Can I ask you, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but can I ask you, Veronica, walking into this dance studio and seeing this, is this a dance studio you could ever imagine yourself dancing in? Were you creeped out? Were like any red flags going off for you?
Well, yeah, everybody in this building was creepy. I mean, the one that came off the most normal was what was her name? Madame Blanc.
Yeah.
Initially, you know, she came off as the most normal, but everybody else, that little boy was creepy.
Her nephew? Yeah, her nephew.
Everything seemed off.
Yes. Yeah.
Everything seemed off.
Seems sinister, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, like, in talking about his inspiration from Snow White, looking back at it now, you can kind of see it. So Susie's like the innocent heroine. We've obviously got the evil, decrepit witch. You could kind of interpret the unknown assailant who kills Pat in the beginning as sort of like the huntsman coming after beautiful maidens.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, you definitely see that reference once you know it's there. I would never pin Snow White to a horror film, so I wouldn't have picked up on that if I hadn't read that.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, Snow White does have the huntsman. He's been ordered to kill her and carve out her heart and bring it back in a box.
That is quite horrific. Yes, that's true. That's true. This is like a dark fairy tale.
But yeah, I can see it with Susie, Jessica Harper's portrayal with, you know, the wide-eyed heroine.
The woman who plays, not Madame Blanc.
Miss Tanner, yes. She was the maid or whatever in Eyes Without a Face.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. Alita Bayi. She was the one that I said, I like immediately when I heard her voice, I was like, I know this voice because it's very distinctive. And she was in that old movie that I saw.
Well, what else has she done? Because she struck me as very familiar. Older version of her. Mm-hmm. Younger version of her in Eyes Without a Face, I didn't recognize at all. But in this movie, I was like, I feel like I've seen this woman and stuff, in other stuff.
I think she was in The Thin Man. Well, she's apparently in his other I think the second movie of that Mother's trilogy, Inferno,
Oh, Inferno.
which I haven't seen. But yeah, the minute I heard her voice again in this one, I was like, it's her again.
Well, I mean, look at us. Look at us finding unintentional themes. I will tell you, looking forward to this movie, I was excited about the dance aspect of it.
Mm,
And then, like, halfway through this movie, I was just like, I would have left this dance studio a long time ago. There's not enough dancing happening in this film.
yes.
And I came here to dance, people, and there's no dancing. So I was a little bit bummed about that. I wanted to see more dancing.
And the
So
dancing that was there, I was like, what is this? Dance school
there was, I mean, I
that
understand
you
these,
crossed an ocean to go to.
right. I understand, like, maybe none of these people were genuine dancers, but like at one point, Jessica Harper is doing a dance sequence, and I'm like, she's off count. So I was like, she's not on the beat.
Well, she was struck by some
That's right. She
unknown
was struck
malady.
by sickness.
Expelled.
What else you got? What else jumped out at you? What were some other moments that made you giggle?
Probably the biggest one was Zombie Sarah at the end
Oh yeah,
when she comes out with the knife.
the
Well,
corpse of
and
Sarah.
even the dialogue from, who was the lady? The old
Uh,
witch? What was her name?
Helena Marcos.
Helena Marcos. Her dialogue. And she was just
Okay.
like, you're kind of going, and now the undead, It was just like, I was cracking up that whole sequence. It's like,
I wish you people could see that. I wish you could see Veronica's face as she's doing that. I really liked, like, initially it was sort of grating on my nerves, and then as the movie progressed, I kind of got into it. The whisper voice of the la 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 la, like in the music, you could hear this, what we are meant to interpret as like a witchy voice being like la 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 la.
yeah.
I liked that. The corpse of Sarah reanimating to sort of lure Susie away. Visually, I thought was nice touch, but yeah, kind of comedic. Comedic only because it's just like you then see the outline of the invisible witch, and Susie is able to see through this ploy to lure her away from the real threat, and so she's able to stab the witch even though she can't physically see her.
Now, my question, what is the purpose of this coven? Like, why? Who all in the school is involved, or is it the students? I mean, what's going on? What is their goal? What is their aim? What are they, like, what's happening?
Granted, I might be projecting a little bit. I don't know. It's hard to know what's real. What did I see versus what am I inferring? But I got the sense that no, none of the dancers really are in on it, are part of it. But maybe they're planning to have a body to put the aging Helena Marcos in so that she can basically take new life in a new body. I don't know why I think that.
Yeah, because that was never mentioned anywhere, and they have young female dancers all the time. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. Like, why at the end, when Susie has found the secret passage and she's crept down there and she sees where Madame Blanc is sitting and her nephew and Miss Tanner, and she's saying the American, she must be killed. We must do it. Like, why? What has Susie been doing that she has to be killed?
Well, and like I got the sense, again, I don't know how much of this is what was laid out in the movie versus what I just interpreted. I got the sense that maybe there was something, I'm going to say this for lack of another word, magical about Susie, or maybe she herself had her own witch power. And so they perceived her as a threat to Helena Marcos. Kind of like the way Snow White is perceived as a threat to the evil queen. She's potentially good magic versus Helena Marcos's dark magic. So I don't know. I don't know why I inferred that, but I felt like that's maybe they wanted to get rid of her because she was perceived as a threat. She was like they knew she was on to something. Like she was going to uncover. She was poking her head around, asking too many questions, being a little
But
too.
she really wasn't. Like,
yeah,
like they
that's
don't
true.
really show her asking. So I think your brain is wanting a plot, and so you're creating this backstory in your head that wasn't ever actually presented in the movie.
And I think I'm also infusing because there are enough things I know about the 2018 remake that I think I'm infusing some of that into this story that maybe isn't there in this story. So
yeah, because there was nothing there. She wasn't really asking a lot of questions, and
yeah.
like I'm trying to think of any questions that she really asked. I mean, she just told them what she all that she recalled of seeing Pat on the night that she arrived, which wasn't a whole lot. I mean,
Wasn't a whole lot.
stuff comes to her later, but she never mentions that to anybody else.
Right. Something about the irises on the wall.
There was a lot in this movie where I was like, just people reacting or acting like not in a way that an average person would have responded in that situation. So there were a lot of things that just didn't make sense from just a human behavior standpoint.
Like, what do you mean? Give me an example.
And I know you're good was going to ask me that, and I can't think of one off the top of my head, but just the girl that she kind of befriends in the show, Sarah, like she's all initially when she's talking about, well, the teachers, they all leave at 9:30, but where do they go? And it's like, who cares? Like, why are you so
suspicious of them?
Like, who cares where they go at 9:30?
Like, yeah. I mean, I can kind of see where Sarah, like, you could perceive her as hysterical because she just seems to be convinced that something sinister is going on. She's not wrong, but also it's like, what has led her to believe that?
Yeah, and when she's telling Susie the story about how some night in the past when the directress, I know that snoring, it's very odd snoring, and I know that was the directress. And I'm like, well, so what? Who cares?
Although I guess she does indicate Pat, her friend Pat, she was close to Pat, and Pat was like telling her some stuff about what she was uncovering about the directress, which I like that term, the directress. You're not given enough information. And kind of like Rosemary's Baby, maybe this was just reminiscent of films of that time. You're not given a whole lot of information. You're left to sort of interpret what you're seeing and draw your own conclusions. And I guess movies nowadays spell it out a little bit more plainly for you.
Hi guys, dropping in real quick to let you know, Don't Watch at Night is getting ready to turn 2 this summer, and that's so exciting. It's been a wonderful journey getting to do this podcast with Veronica. For those of you who don't know, we are actual sisters. We started this podcast with a goal in mind of lifting up Spanish language horror and Latin American horror, because there are so many rich, wonderful stories out there in that realm. Though we do cover all kinds of other horror because it takes a village. But what we are asking you now as we approach year 2 is to drop us a comment or review and let us know how we're doing. If you listen over on Spotify, did you know you can leave comments on episodes and give your feedback? If you're listening over on Apple, you can drop us a rate and review. It's a great way to let us know how we're doing and to also share the show with other potential listeners out there who find us by way of your reviews. So do us a favor, if you like what you've been listening to so far, and if you want to hear more, give us a comment, give us a rate, a review, give us a follow, and share us with other spooky little weirdos out there in your life, okay? We love you. Thanks.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, talk to me about how you felt about the dog, the scene with the dog. Did that make you laugh? I figured you would find that deeply upsetting, but did that make you laugh?
No, it didn't make me laugh. I was just like, where is this man that he's in this big old humongous plaza and there's not a single other person around?
Not a soul. Yeah.
Until it's too late.
I felt so terrible. I was just like, no, don't make the dog the murderer. Yeah, so what happens is the pianist, who happens to be blind, he has an eye-seeing dog, is walking through this town square in the middle of the night. There's not a soul.
Town square.
You hear the ominous music, so you know something sinister is about to happen. The dog is freaking out because he perceives a threat, but obviously he can't see it. The dog's getting increasingly agitated until finally you just see the dog clamp down on this man's neck and just go to town and rip his neck apart.
Eating it. But if you're visually impaired, if you can't see, how that must be like really scary if there's some danger around you and you can't see it. I can't even imagine.
Well, and just to know at the end, because he knew his own dog was attacking him, his own dog that he defended and loved so tremendously. And it is just so tragic to have that be this man's fate, who didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. He was playing piano and the dog
what was the purpose of that? Like, I'm assuming the witches, I don't know, bespelled the dog or
yes.
something, but like, why?
I guess it's like revenge for the dog attacks the Madame Blanc's nephew. But again, it's like it's not that guy's fault. Like, the dog just did that probably because the dog senses the evil in these people. And Miss Tanner yells and chases him out of the building. You're fired. Get out of here. Blah, blah, blah. But it seemed misplaced anger, in my opinion. And then to go the extreme route of like, we're going to off you because you pissed us off.
Now, what did you think about, and at this point, we're like an hour and 12 minutes into this movie where this is where Susie meets with, I don't know, was he a psychiatrist? And he gives the exposition.
Oh, yeah.
About the Black Queen, Madame Marcus, and all of that. And had we met that man before? Because I'm like,
no.
Okay, so we're over an hour into this movie, and this movie's only an hour and 38 minutes. So
right.
We're at the hour and 12-minute mark. I wrote it down, and we're suddenly getting this random character that we've never seen before, never heard of before, and he's giving us all this exposition on why there might be weirdness at the dance studio. And I was like, really?
Well,
we're just now getting this?
Can you summarize that exposition? Because I blocked that part out, apparently. Like, I remember that scene, but I don't remember enough specifics about what he covers. What does he say?
He's just telling them about, I don't remember like how long ago, how many years back, that this Madame Marcus came and she was accused of being a witch, and so she acquired the nickname of the Black Queen, and she was setting up a cult studies, whatever, but then at some point they believed that she died in a fire, and she was severely burned, and Madame Blanc eventually took over the school and supposedly did away with the occult and just turned it into a dance academy.
Oh, okay.
Like, I don't understand the choice of waiting that long, like when the movie's almost over, to give us the backstory.
Seemed like you could have gotten that earlier in the film. Is that kind of what you...
Or at least little pieces. Then maybe not the whole... Because here we're just getting the whole story dumped in one exposition dump. And it seems like it would have been more effective to me if like Susie had been like finding little tidbits of information
slowly uncovering,
instead of just dumped near the very end of the movie. Because then it just kind of feels like, and I'm sure this is not the case, but what it feels like if this was a book, I would be thinking, okay, the author didn't have this planned out, and they just decided at the 11th hour that, I'm going to throw this in there. Which I'm sure was not. I'm sure he had this all planned out in his mind, but it just kind of feels like an afterthought. Like, I better put this in here so it makes some sense.
Yeah, and that is part of like what is known about the Three Mothers trilogy. I went and looked that up. She is known as like the Black Queen, and so
why is it called the Three Mothers trilogy?
Well, so like I'll have to. This is not part of the initial resources I sent you, but I did some more reading on it. So I'm gonna say this to the best of my ability. Mater Suspiriorum, the mother of sighs. She's the oldest and wisest of the three. So that's Helena Marcos. She's the only one who has a name. So like in Inferno, Mother of Darkness, it doesn't have a name. That's Marte Tenebrarum, the Mother of Darkness. She's the youngest and the cruelest of the three mothers. And then in the Mother of Tears, I can't even say that. I'm not even going to attempt to say that. But she is the most beautiful and powerful of the three mothers. And so I think that the story is like they're all on different countries, maybe even different continents. I don't even know. I think it comes into play with the remake, the reboot. I don't want to give stuff away if nobody's seen it, and you haven't seen it. I don't know if you're going to see it.
The 2018 one?
Uh-huh.
I don't know. Maybe just out of curiosity to see it.
Well, because it's very different. It's very, very different from the original. Hold on. I think the only difference... Hold on, I'm reading. Okay, no. I mean, this isn't worth mentioning. I thought it was going to be something different. I thought it was going to be that in the reboot, Dakota Johnson is revealed to be the Mother of Tears, like the third mother, the most beautiful and powerful of them. But that's not the case. So never mind. I thought that was like going to be a deviation from the original, but it's not. So yeah, I mean, that is the story of those three mothers. And like to that point, I would love, and I guess that's part of why you have to dive into the trilogy, because I would love to hear more exposition on that. I want more story on that and understanding. And maybe once you've seen the full trilogy, you can kind of see how all of these things come together. The movie's big reveal, which literally comes like in the final 10 minutes of this movie. I kept looking at the timer. I was like, we've only got 10 minutes. Like, where's the ending of this movie going? You want to set up that final scene for us and then kind of give me your assessment?
She's found her way into the secret tunnel by counting steps, trying to track where the instructors disappear after 9:30 every night. And she finds Madame Blanc sitting in a chair, surrounded by Miss Tanner and the male servant and her nephew. And this is where Madame Blanc is like, she must die, die, die. And I'm thinking, but why? And I don't remember exactly how, but they become aware that she's lurking there in the shadows. And so, because she hiding from them, and she backs away into this room, and she discovers the body of her friend Sarah, who we never covered her death. Did she fall in a pit of like barbed wire, or what was that?
It wasn't barbed wire because she wasn't getting cut up. I was watching the scene and I was like, I bet she's getting all sliced and diced, and I didn't see blood. I think it was just wire, and like slinky wire, and she's getting all tangled in it. But then how does she die? I forget how she dies. What happens to her?
Well, they don't show. She just like suddenly looks off camera and she screams.
Okay.
So whoever was after her, I guess, caught up with her. And anyway, she's pinned to this table. There's like spikes through her wrists, and she's clearly dead.
She's clearly dead. Yeah.
So Susie makes a noise, and so they become aware that she's there, and so they're after her, and she runs and finds a doorway that she goes into. She shuts it. This is where she hears that labored breathing noise, and this is apparently the room where Madame Marcos is kept, and she's kind of her bed is behind this. There's a veil over the bed. Susie goes up there and rips the curtain aside. There's nobody. She's basically invisible, because we can hear her voice, and this is where she's doing that. I won't do it again, but my impression of her basically taunting Susie and telling her, "You're gonna die." And Susie can't see her, and this is where reanimated corpse of her friend Sarah comes with the knife. And then I'm not sure why, but every time I think there's another storm raging outside, and every time the lightning hits, she can see like the outline where Madame Marcus is.
Okay.
Think Harry Potter wearing an invisibility cloak.
Yes.
But when the lightning hits, for some reason, she can see the outline, so she knows where to stab.
Where to stab, yeah.
She stabs that. And because that's one thing in the exposition that random character was telling her, that if the head witch of the coven dies, then basically the magic that fuels the rest of the coven dies with her.
Okay, because that's what I was wondering, because like Helena Marcos doesn't really have much of a role in this movie at all. You don't even see her till the very end, and you see her barely. And so there's a part of me that's just like, why does Madame Blanc need her at all? Like, why not just kill this witch and run the coven? But yeah, okay, so that makes sense, that if she dies, then everything goes with her.
Yeah. So she kills her. Like the whole building just starts shaking and falling apart. And Susie makes her way out the building into the rain. The fire breaks out in the building. You can see, which, by the way, all the students were gone, right?
I think so. I don't know.
I think they had said that they had gotten tickets for them all to go somewhere, because Susie was like, well, why didn't I get a ticket? Which is a good question. Why didn't she get a ticket? Why was she the only one left behind?
So it burns down.
It burns down, basically.
I thought the reanimated corpse was a nice touch. I enjoyed that. So, it ties up well. I was just like, how in the hell are they going to wrap this up? I thought it wrapped it up fine. And it was just funny to me that it's just like, you don't really see this woman until the very, very end. And then she's just immediately offed. All in all, a fun movie, and fun enough that like I want to see Inferno, and I want to see Mother of Tears just to see more of like what this trilogy is and understand it better. Mother of Tears came out in 2007. That's late. I don't even know who's in that one. Hold on, I'm gonna look it up real quick.
Well, like I said, the actress that played Miss Tanner, Alida Vai, is also in Inferno.
It would be worth seeing. I'd be down to see those. So there's some fun stuff to share with listeners. There, like, depending on who you ask, there's debate about whether or not this is considered a giallo film, because of the reason, like, Fangoria lists it as not a giallo film, but they do kind of talk about his other like traditional giallos that are worth looking at: The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, The Cat o' Nine Tails, Four Flies on Grey Velvet. His most popular one in this genre was Deep Red, which came out in 1975. Then there's one called Tenebra, and then Phenomena, which stars a very young Jennifer Connelly, Veronica, that came out in 1985. So I think like the reason why there's debate about whether or not this is a traditional giallo film is because because of the supernatural horror element of it. So like with a giallo, you've got, there's usually a very concrete, real threat, and you might get lured into believing that there's something supernatural happening. That's part of the red herring. But then in the end, it always turns out to be not true. It is a real killer or evildoer, what have you. In this case, I think that it's debatable. It's debatable whether or not this is a true giallo.
What did you think about and I know you saw this a week ago, so you may not remember exactly, but the part of the movie where Susie is talking with that random male character that we've never seen that gives kind of all the backstory. And then she also talks with an older doctor who I think specialized in the occult, studies of the occult, but just the very heavy-handed emphasis on witches are bad and witches are evil. And their only purpose is they only have dark goals, dark aims.
Yeah.
And this whole kind of perpetuation of witches as evil.
I mean, I don't know. What is your opinion on that?
Well, it just kind of brings me back to the witch burning when women were burned as witches, and they were just women who were healers or just women who didn't fit into the societal norms of the time or the expectations or didn't want to fit into those roles.
Well, and also like, again, like Snow White, the concept that we're given in this film, as in the Walt Disney Snow White as well, the concept of the witch is this old, haggard, ugly woman who is to be feared. And why is that the visual that we're given?
Like, what is a witch but a woman with power? And why is that demonized? So that just kind of stuck out to me.
And that's why, like, I'm going to have to watch the 2018 remake. I just am. But like, it's why I feel like what a fitting ending it would have been if after Susie destroys the witch, destroys her kingdom, then she is imbued with the power. Suddenly she is the powerful mother. That would be cool to me. I'd be like, yeah, long live the mother. But, but force for good.
Yeah.
It's an interesting movie. Jessica Harper, there's one of the resources we have for you guys. There's a really fun interview with her. She was in the movie that came out recently called Night Bitch. Night Bitch is the name of the movie with Amy Adams.
I haven't heard of that movie. Have you heard of that movie?
I have heard of it. I don't know that it necessarily performed well, but I did hear of it. It's based off a book, I believe. And so Jessica Harper has a part in that film. She's a very interesting actress, and she has taken a lot of interesting roles intentionally. She's very intentional with her choices. So I think that's pretty cool. She's in Minority Report, which I went digging to figure out who she plays in. It's been years since I've seen that movie. And so I don't quite remember her in Minority Report. I'll have to go back. I'm not going to rewatch it because I don't care. But there's a part of me that wants to know who she is in that movie.
And then the lady that played Madame Blanc, Jones Bennett.
Yes.
Did you ever see... I've never seen them, but the original, what was it called? Father of the Bride with Elizabeth Taylor?
I've never seen the original, no.
Okay.
I'm aware of it, but I've never seen it.
And
she's
the
in
sequel. She plays the mother.
Oh, okay.
I was getting her confused when I saw the name. I was like, but she didn't look anything like that. I was getting her confused, I think, with Joan Fontaine.
There's a piece by Peter Zobisky. I butchered that, from RogerEbert.com, who said Argento is, of course, the legendary Italian horror filmmaker who has dazzled and terrified audiences throughout the world for decades with his visually astonishing and oftentimes gruesome works. He worked as a film critic. He contributed to the screenplay for Sergio Leone's Once Upon a Time in the West. I thought that was kind of cool. The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, that was his directorial debut in 1970.
Oh, that's because I watched this movie on Plex. I found it on Plex, which is, it's free. You have to put up with some ads, and I think if you want to pay, you can get a level that doesn't have ads, but that's where I found this movie. So I was able to watch it for free, but they also have that, whatever you just said, the Bird.
Once Upon a Time in the West. Yeah.
No, the Bird with the Crystal Plumage.
Yeah, that was his first one. And that's a giallo. I always want to say giallo. Giallo. He wrote Suspiria with his partner at the time. I don't know if there's Daria Nicolodi. They co-wrote the screenplay together for what would eventually become Suspiria. So I watched Suspiria on Hoopla Digital, guys, which is a great resource. If your public library is hooked up with that, then it's pretty cool. I immediately borrowed an ebook that I have no time to read, but I was just like, yeah.
You should get a library card from Houston. Any Texas resident can get a free library card from Houston.
Definitely. If you haven't, by some odd chance, this was Ronnie, had you ever seen Suspiria?
Mm-mm.
Never, huh?
Mm-mm.
I had never seen it either. So if by some happenstance you have never seen this movie, listener, definitely worth a viewing. This is a cult classic. It's beloved. Many people who are avid horror watchers talk about this movie, and it really sort of laid the foundation for horror directors going forward. This was sort of like the use of color in this film. Guillermo del Toro has talked about use of color in horror films, and you definitely see that playing out here. The greens, the yellows, the blues, the reds. This was sort of one of the first films that did that. Definitely pivotal and important and worth a viewing. Let me see. Just a reminder, guys, we did select a book, our summer read we're doing.
Which Perla now has me freaked out about.
Oh, the Jawbone by Mónica Ojeda. I blinked for a second. I was like, what do we pick? Yes. Jawbone by Mónica Ojeda. We are targeting end of July for that. Veronica, I'm letting you know that too, because we hadn't declared that last episode, but end of July. So when we come back from our break, we're going to have one movie episode, and then the second episode of July will be book club episode. Ron, I had put it in show notes, or I had put it in the outline, but I hadn't had a chance to talk to you about it. There's a movie called Shrew's Nest. The Spanish title, Musarañas. If it's still available come July, it's on Amazon Prime right now. If it's still available, that one might be a fun one to watch. As is always the case, this was the case last summer too. I went digging, trying to find like Spanish summer camp horror, and that just isn't really a thing. I have not found any Spanish movies that are like summer camp horror, you know? It'd be fun to do summer camp horror.
Is that one?
It would, no, I don't think so.
No.
In my search, it came up though, and I was just like, well,
what's it called? Shrew's
Nest.
Shrew's Nest. All right.
Musarañas. So we'll tentatively, that's an idea. We're not committed to it, but that's an idea. Patreon listeners, if you have ideas, you get first dibs in naming what those are. You know, this was the last film in our Step Outside Spanish Language month, so we will be returning to Spanish films in July. I guess that's it. You got anything else?
Nope.
All right, my friends. Well, thank you so much for listening. Like I said, we'll be taking June off, but you will get all new episodes from us in July, so look forward to that. Like I said, you're still going to be getting some June episodes, some compilation episodes, so enjoy those. It's a great opportunity to catch up on missed episodes. I guess we will see.
I will also say, just as a quick anecdote, before I watched this movie, because my husband asked me what the movie that we were watching this time, and I told him, and he's like, "Oh, that's gory." And I was like, and he just kept going on, "That's really gory." And I'm like, after I finished watching, I was like, "What are you talking about?" I mean, and I'm sure for the time it was gory, but again, I'm watching it here, and
but
I'm jaded, and I've seen a lot.
You've seen a lot, but you've got to look at it the way you would art, Ron. Like, you got to go in and individually assess a piece of work on its own, not judging it against everything else you've seen, but against like, okay, let me look at this body of work for what it is and assess it independently of anything else, which is hard to do, I know, but but I mean, for the time, this was definitely graphic. That first death scene again.
Inspired. But he had me all like tense about watching it. I was like, well, no, I don't know if I want to watch it. But
I think the 2018 remake is much more graphic and body horror-esque. So I'm less excited to watch that. But at the same time, I'm kind of excited to watch it because I think it takes the premise of this story and fills in a bunch of gaps that you and I have that we could maybe appreciate. So I did want to read, hold on, before we go, I guess we should just go because I was already like signing off and then I was like, okay, we have more. But we have it linked in show notes, guys. Some Rotten Tomatoes reviews. Those are always hilarious and it's worth reading because some people really love the film, some people do not. And so some of the things people say are just, they make you laugh. They're funny. That's it. So we will sign off for right now. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you in July.
Bye. Don't Watch at Night is a Nest production hosted by me, Veronica, and Valerie. Editing by Valerie. Music by Omar Chakor. Production support for this episode provided by Lorenzo Villarreal and Alex Street. Listen to new episodes of Don't Watch at Night every other Monday, and don't forget to give us a rate and review. It's the best way to help us grow.